There is a distinct, intoxicating flavor to the moment you realize a wildly arrogant person has just handed you the exact shovel they intend to dig their own grave with. It tastes like cold water on a blistering day. Most conflicts in life are messy, loud, and devoid of any real justice. People shout, blood pressures spike, and everyone walks away feeling entirely unsatisfied. But every once in a while, the universe aligns perfectly. The pieces fall into a neat little row, and all you have to do is step back, keep your mouth shut, and let gravity do the heavy lifting. Torin lived on the second floor of a weathered brick building that smelled perpetually of eucalyptus, floor wax, and sterile bandages. The ground floor was occupied by Caldwell's Pharmacy, a bustling neighborhood fixture that drew a relentless stream of foot traffic. Flanking the pharmacy was a narrow, paved alleyway leading to a heavy wrought iron gate. Beyond that gate lay Torin's private courtyard and his assigned garage. The geography of the street should have been simple. Next to the pharmacy sat 4 designated public parking spaces. Just around the corner, barely a 2-minute walk away, sprawled a massive municipal lot with at least 80 empty spots at any given hour. Yet, human nature is fundamentally lazy. Returning home from a grueling 10-hour shift, Torin routinely found random vehicles abandoned directly in front of his driveway, their hazard lights blinking in a silent, mocking apology. The core of the problem was the iron gate itself. The pharmacy received multiple deliveries throughout the afternoon. Rather than punching the security code into the keypad for every arriving truck, the delivery drivers had developed a crude workaround. They wedged a splintered, grease-stained block of pine against the gate's optical sensor, effectively tricking the photocell into thinking a vehicle was actively passing through. The heavy iron bars would remain stubbornly fully retracted all day, leaving Torin's private sanctuary wide open to the street. On a particularly humid Tuesday evening, Torin turned onto his street, the tires of his dusty sedan crunching over loose gravel. His shoulders ached, his eyes burned from staring at monitors, and all he wanted was a hot shower. Miraculously, the space in front of the gate was empty. The iron bars were retracted, the wooden wedge doing its illicit job against the sensor. Torin signaled, turning his steering wheel to pull into his courtyard. Before he could complete the turn, a massive, pristine silver Cadillac Escalade aggressively accelerated from the opposite direction, swerving directly into Torin's path. The SUV didn't just block the driveway. It rolled straight past the property line, parking entirely inside Torin's private courtyard. Torin slammed on his brakes, his palm hitting the horn in a long, blaring reprimand. The driver's door of the Escalade swung open, and out stepped a man who looked to be in his mid-70s. He wore crisp khaki slacks, a pastel yellow golf polo tucked in tight, and an expression of supreme, unbothered entitlement. Let's call him Eustace. He didn't flinch at the horn, he didn't look apologetic. He simply locked his vehicle with a sharp electronic chirp and began walking toward the pharmacy entrance. Torin rolled down his window, leaning out. "Excuse me, you can't park there, that's a private residential courtyard." Eustace paused, looking back over his shoulder. His eyes raked over Torin's modest sedan with naked disdain. "This space belongs to the pharmacy. I am going to the pharmacy. I saw the opening before you did, so I am leaving it right here." "It doesn't belong to the pharmacy," Torin replied, fighting to keep his voice level. "It belongs to the tenants of this building. My garage is right behind your bumper. You are trespassing." Eustace let out a sharp, condescending laugh. He adjusted the collar of his polo, his face flushing a faint shade of pink. "Listen to me, young man. I am not moving my vehicle. If you don't want people parking inside your precious little courtyard, you need to close the gate." With a dismissive flick of his wrist, Eustace turned his back and marched into Caldwell's Pharmacy, the glass doors sliding shut behind him. Torin sat in his idling car, the rhythmic thrum of the engine vibrating through the steering wheel. He stared at the silver behemoth trespassing on his property. He looked at the heavy iron gate. Then his eyes drifted down to the base of the stone pillar. The Escalade was parked deep inside the courtyard, completely clearing the optical sensor line. The only thing keeping the gate open was the splintered block of pine resting against the photocell. Torin shifted his car into park and stepped out onto the pavement. The evening air was thick and warm. He walked calmly to the stone pillar. He didn't touch the gate. He didn't touch the Cadillac. He simply lifted his right boot and delivered a swift, casual kick to the block of wood. The pine wedge skittered across the concrete, disappearing under a nearby dumpster. Immediately, the photocell emitted a soft, electronic click. The heavy internal gears of the gate motor engaged with a deep mechanical groan. Slowly, methodically, the thick iron bars glided across the driveway track. With a heavy metallic slam that echoed down the block, the gate shut. The magnetic lock engaged with a definitive clack. Eustace's pristine silver Escalade was now safely entombed in a private, locked fortress. Torrin walked back to his car, feeling a profound sense of inner peace settle over him. He put the vehicle in drive, navigated away from the pharmacy, and easily found a legal parking spot 3 blocks down the street. He locked his doors, grabbed his briefcase, and enjoyed a leisurely stroll back to his building. He let himself in through the pedestrian side door, climbed the stairs to his apartment, and began his evening routine. He poured himself a glass of cold water. He took off his work shoes. He stepped into the bathroom, turned the shower dial all the way to hot, and let the steaming water wash away the grime and stress of the day. The bathroom filled with the scent of cedarwood soap. For 10 glorious minutes, the world outside simply did not exist. Then the intercom began to scream. It wasn't a polite buzz. It was a frantic, sustained assault. Someone was leaning their entire body weight against the button downstairs. The grating noise vibrated through the apartment walls. Torrin turned off the water, wrapped a towel around his waist, and checked his reflection in the mirror. He took his time. He dried his hair. He pulled on a comfortable pair of sweatpants and a faded gray t-shirt. He walked into the kitchen, drank another glass of water, and finally pressed the intercom receiver. Before he could even speak, a muffled, frantic voice exploded through the speaker. 10 minutes later, Torrin casually strolled out the pedestrian door into the evening air. A small crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. Pharmacy patrons clutched their white paper bags, murmuring to each other. In the center of the spectacle stood Eustace, his complexion now the color of bruised plums. The veins in his neck stood out like thick blue cords. He was pacing furiously in front of the locked iron gate, gripping the bars and shaking them. When Eustace spotted Torrin, his eyes widened with absolute fury. "You," Eustace roared, pointing a trembling finger at Torrin's chest. "You stole my car, I called the police. You are going to jail, do you hear me? You are going to have serious problems now." Torrin stopped at a safe distance, his hands casually shoved deep into his sweatpants pockets. His demeanor was the picture of relaxed confusion. "Sir, I suggest you lower your voice. I have no idea what you're talking about. I was upstairs taking a shower." "Don't play games with me," Eustace shrieked, spit flying from his lips. He turned to the bewildered onlookers. "He locked my car in, he trapped my vehicle to steal it." "You parked on private property," Torrin said softly, ensuring the growing crowd could hear the contrast between his calm tone and the older man's hysteria. "I told you it was private. Then I went and parked my own car several blocks away, walked home and took a shower. I don't know what to tell you." "You stay right here," Eustace demanded, his voice cracking. "You wait right here for the police." "I'm not going anywhere," Torrin replied, leaning comfortably against the brick wall of the pharmacy. 3 minutes later, the wail of sirens pierced the neighborhood chatter. A blue and white patrol cruiser pulled up, its lights flashing rhythmically against the storefront windows. A burly, tired-looking officer stepped out, adjusting his heavy utility belt. "Let's call him Officer Gannon." Eustace practically sprinted toward the cruiser. "Officer, finally, arrest this man immediately. He stole my car. He trapped it inside this enclosure and he's trying to extort me or steal it." He held up his key fob, frantically pressing the button to make the Escalade honk from behind the iron bars. Officer Gannon held up a thick, calloused hand, signaling for silence. He looked at the screaming man, then at the locked gate, then at Torrin, who was still leaning against the brickwork, looking mildly bored. Gannon approached Torrin. "Evening. Can you explain what's going on here?" "Good evening, officer," Torrin said, his voice polite and measured. "I live upstairs. This gate leads to my private garage. I arrived home from work to find this gentleman pulling his vehicle directly into my private courtyard. I informed him it was residential property. He told me it belonged to the pharmacy, refused to move, and walked away." "He is lying," Eustace interrupted, stepping aggressively toward Torrin. "He trapped my car. He closed the gate on purpose to steal my vehicle." Gannon turned a stern eye on Eustace. "Sir, I will ask you to step back and remain quiet while I conduct my investigation, or I will put you in the back of my cruiser for disturbing the peace. Do you understand?" Eustace's jaw snapped shut, though his chest continued to heave. Gannon turned back to Torrin. "Did you close the gate to trap his vehicle?" Torrin offered a perfectly innocent shrug. "The gate operates on an automatic photocell sensor, officer. The pharmacy delivery guys usually jam a piece of wood in there to keep it open during the day, which causes a lot of security issues for us tenants. When I pulled up, the wood must have fallen out or the sensor finally tripped. The gate just did what it's programmed to do. Besides, even if I had removed the block of wood, it is my legal right to secure my residential property. In fact, right before this gentleman walked away, he explicitly told me that if I didn't want people parking inside, I should close the gate. So the gate is closed. Gannon looked from Torin's calm face to the furious, trembling Eustace. He looked at the heavy iron bars and the massive SUV parked clearly beyond the private property. No trespassing sign bolted to the brickwork. The officer let out a long, heavy sigh, the kind born from years of dealing with neighborhood disputes. Gannon turned to Eustace. His voice dropped an octave, losing any trace of customer service politeness. "Sir, you called 911 to report a grand theft auto. Your car is not stolen, you have the keys. Your car is parked exactly where you left it, which happens to be illegally trespassing on this man's private property." "But he," Eustace started. "Quiet," Gannon barked. "This is private property, sir, you trespassed. You abandoned your vehicle on private land, and you initiated a false emergency response because you didn't like the consequences of your own actions." Eustace looked as though he had been physically struck. The deep purple hue drained from his face, leaving him a sickly, mottled gray. He looked at the crowd, who were now openly smirking, and then at his pristine SUV locked behind the bars. He physically deflated, his shoulders slumping. Gannon looked at Torin. "Do you want to press trespassing charges, or do you just want his vehicle off your property?" Torin pretended to mull it over. "I just want to park in my own garage, officer, but there's a slight logistical problem." "Which is?" "The remote clicker to open the gate is inside my car. Because this gentleman blocked the entrance, I had to park 3 blocks away on Elm Street. I'll need to go fetch it." Torin glanced at Eustace, then lowered his voice just enough to ensure everyone heard. "And honestly, officer, I'm a little bit scared by his aggressive behavior. Would you mind staying here and explaining the law to him while I go get my keys, just to ensure my safety?" Gannon's lips twitched, fighting back a smile. "Take your time, son. I'll make sure things stay peaceful here." Torin took his time. He did not run. He did not jog. He walked at the leisurely pace of a man enjoying a cool summer evening. He examined the architecture of the nearby buildings. He stopped at a crosswalk. He took a full 15 minutes to walk to his car, retrieve the small black plastic clicker from his sun visor, and stroll all the way back. When Torin finally rounded the corner to the pharmacy, the dynamic had entirely shifted. Eustace was no longer yelling. He was standing rigidly by the patrol car, staring down at the pavement like a scolded schoolboy. Officer Gannon was leaning against his cruiser, his arms crossed. Having clearly spent the last 15 minutes delivering a comprehensive lecture on municipal law and basic human decency. Torin approached the gate, aimed the clicker, and pressed the button. The mechanical gears groaned and the iron bars slid open. Gannon pointed a heavy finger at Eustace. "Get in your vehicle. Before you start the engine, you are going to apologize to this man for trespassing on his property and wasting his evening. Then you are going to drive away. If I ever see your vehicle parked within 50 feet of this driveway again, I will personally tow it and cite you for misuse of the emergency dispatch system." "Am I clear?" Eustace didn't make eye contact. He stared at Torin's chest, his voice barely a whisper. "I apologize for parking in your courtyard." "Apology accepted," Torin said cheerfully. "Have a wonderful night, sir." Eustace practically scrambled into his Escalade. The engine roared to life, and the massive silver SUV reversed out of the courtyard with frantic haste, its tires squealing as it sped down the street, disappearing into the twilight. Torin thanked the officer, who offered a brief nod before driving off into the night. Torin pressed the clicker once more. The heavy iron gate slid shut, locking securely behind him. From that day forward, the splintered wooden wedge mysteriously vanished, and no one ever dared to park in front of the gate again. There is a profound lesson hidden within the heavy iron bars of that driveway. True power rarely requires you to raise your voice. When you encounter boundless arrogance, you don't need to match its volume. You simply need to step out of the way, adhere strictly to the rules they demand of you, and let their own momentum carry them straight into a brick wall. Malicious compliance isn't just about revenge. It's an art form that uses the opponent's own weight against them. If you loved this story of perfect karma and the quiet satisfaction of malicious compliance, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Leave a comment below telling us about a time you let someone's arrogance be their own downfall. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another story where justice is served, cold and uncompromising.